Listen, before we go any further, I want you to hear this clearly. A woman can want you, dream about you, and picture being intimate with you, and still pull away the moment you try to make a move. And if you've ever felt that cold hesitation, that sudden stiffness in her body language, that look in her eyes that makes you second-guess everything, you're not imagining it. You're walking straight into one of the deepest psychological traps in female attraction. And if you don't know how to navigate that moment, calmly, confidently, without pressure, you can destroy a connection that was already in your favor. So I want you to stay with me until the end, because there's something I'm going to reveal that most men never hear, and it will change how you approach intimacy forever. And before I continue, make sure you like this video and subscribe, because the truth I'm about to give you, nobody teaches men with this level of clarity. Now let's talk about what's really happening when you think a woman isn't ready. Because most men assume she needs more time, more reassurance, more sweet talking. You think her hesitation means not interested, or you went too fast, or you should pull back. But that's not the full picture, not even close. When a woman hesitates about intimacy, it's rarely about whether she wants you physically. It's about whether she feels safe enough emotionally to let you see a version of her she doesn't show the world. Women are raised from childhood with one powerful message: your body is vulnerable. Be careful. So if she gives you intimacy, she's not giving you something physical. She's giving you access to a part of her she protects with her entire identity. This is why some women will joke with you, flirt with you, let the tension build, even tease you. But the second you lean in to take things to the next level, they freeze. Not because they don't want you, but because intimacy requires one extremely specific emotional condition. She must feel like she's choosing you, not being pursued into a corner. Here's the part men always get wrong, because nobody taught you this. Women don't respond to pressure, they respond to presence. And the psychological trick I'm about to teach you starts with something so simple that most men overlook it, but its impact is massive. When you want to escalate intimacy, don't rush, don't push, don't go for it like you're trying to win a moment. Instead, you shift the energy. You make her feel seen. You make her feel chosen, not targeted. You bring her into the moment with you, instead of trying to pull her into your desire. Because here's the truth, and it's a truth most men never learn. A woman becomes intimate when she feels emotionally synchronized with you. Not when you try to impress her, not when you make a move, but when she feels that the moment isn't happening to her, it's happening with her. This is the foundation. This is where every mistake or success begins. If you can master this emotional shift, intimacy stops being awkward or uncertain and becomes something she willingly gives because she feels safe, connected, and excited. There's a moment every man has experienced, but almost no one ever talks about it. It's that instant when you're with a woman, maybe on the couch, maybe after a deep conversation, maybe after a perfect date, and everything feels right. Her eyes stay on you a little longer. Her voice softens. She sits closer, almost without thinking, and you know the intimacy is there. You feel it in your chest. You feel it in her breathing. You feel it in the silence between you. But here's the psychological trap. The moment you try to act on it too quickly, you shatter the atmosphere she was opening herself to. Because women enter intimacy emotionally first, physically second. Men often enter intimacy physically first, emotionally second. This mismatch creates confusion that destroys the moment. So here is the psychological trick. Subtle, powerful, and deeply effective, because it works with her natural emotional wiring rather than against it. Most men try to cross the bridge toward her, but the secret is to let her cross the bridge toward you and to create the emotional environment that makes her want to. You don't lean in, you don't grab, you don't rush. You simply shift your presence in a way that triggers her feminine instinct to move closer. And the way you trigger that shift is deceptively simple. You slow everything down, not to create tension, but to create permission. Because when you slow down, she feels your confidence. She feels your control of the moment. She feels that you're not desperate for intimacy. You're choosing it, but not depending on it. That difference, right there, is what breaks down her psychological guards. Women fear 3 things when intimacy approaches: being rushed, being misread, being objectified. When you slow down, you eliminate all three fears at once. You might look at her, gently hold her gaze for just a second longer than usual, not in a hungry way, but in a way that tells her, "I'm here, I'm grounded, you're safe." Your voice lowers naturally. Your body language relaxes instead of tensing up. You aren't chasing the moment, you're inviting it. That's when she starts leaning into you without realizing it. That's when she initiates small touches. That's when she makes eye contact, then breaks it, then comes back again. These are not random behaviors. These are the green lights women give when they feel emotionally aligned with a man's presence. And when she does these things, you're not making a move. You're simply responding to a moment she chose to step into with you. She feels in control, and that sense of control is what allows her to trust the unfolding intimacy. This is how you escalate without escalating. This is how you deepen a moment without forcing anything. This is how you make intimacy feel like a connection rather than an outcome. Most men skip this part. They rush, they push, they misread signals, and then they wonder why she shuts down, hesitates, or says she doesn't feel ready. She would be ready if you knew how to guide her emotions instead of trying to force her body. This is where intimacy begins, not as an act, but as an energy she steps into willingly. There's something you need to understand about women that most men go their entire lives misreading. A woman doesn't decide to become intimate with you in the moment it happens. She decides long before that, based on how you make her feel emotionally, mentally, and psychologically. And here's the twist. She will only act on that desire when she feels like you understand her without her having to explain anything. That is the core of feminine psychology. Not pressure, not pushiness, not physical escalation, but emotional attunement. When a woman is with a man who is emotionally attuned, she feels something rare, the sense that she can be her full self without being judged, rushed, or misunderstood. And that emotional safety is what unlocks her desire to move the connection forward. Let me tell you what most men do wrong, because it happens every day. A man senses the connection building, but he tries to perform. He becomes overly charming, overly flirtatious, overly physical, thinking he has to do something big to get her attention. He starts acting instead of being. He tries to impress instead of connect. And that shift, subtle as it is, breaks everything. Because women feel when a man switches from being present to being performative. They feel when he becomes outcome-oriented instead of moment-oriented. And the second she feels that change, her guard comes up. This is why the psychological trick you're learning matters so much. You don't escalate intimacy with action. You escalate intimacy with awareness. It's the way you notice the change in her breathing, the way you recognize when she's nervous in a good way versus overwhelmed in a bad way, the way you sense when she needs a moment of eye contact and when she needs space to process her feelings. Women don't open up to the loudest man in the room. They open up to the man who makes them feel understood without needing to be told. So here's what you do. Instead of focusing on making something happen, focus on reading her emotional state. Pay attention to the way she speaks. Does her voice soften? Does she play with her hair without thinking? Does she sit closer or angle her body toward you? Does she laugh more easily? Does she lower her defenses around you? These are not just behaviors. They're invitations. When she feels seen, she feels connected. And when she feels connected, she trusts the moment enough to move forward. Because here's the truth no one tells men. A woman doesn't become intimate because of a man's confidence. She becomes intimate because of how her confidence grows around him. That is the real psychological principle you must understand. It's not about dominance or tactics or manipulation. It's about creating an emotional environment where she feels strong, feminine, open, and safe. Do that. And she won't just accept intimacy. She'll want it because she feels chosen, not pressured, valued, not used, and emotionally free, not emotionally cornered. This is the shift that changes everything. There's a moment in every interaction with a woman where her emotions, not her logic, decide what happens next. Men often think intimacy is about timing, technique, or confidence. But the truth is far simpler and far more psychological. A woman becomes intimate when she feels emotionally led, not physically chaste. Let me explain what that means in a way no one ever explained to you. Most men approach intimacy as a step, a checkpoint, a milestone they must reach or earn. But women don't see it as a step. They experience it as an emotional shift, a transition from curiosity to comfort to desire. And that transition doesn't happen because you made a move. It happens because of the emotional tone you set. Here's the part most men never realize. The moment you try too hard, you instantly communicate that you need the intimacy more than you need the connection. And that kills the attraction. Why? Because women are wired to feel out the emotional balance between you. They need to know you're not trying to fill a void. They need to know you're not trying to validate yourself through her. They need to know you want the moment, but you don't need the moment. That difference is everything. A woman can sense the emotional temperature in the room better than most men can. She knows when you're relaxed. She knows when you're trying too hard. She knows when you're nervous, when you're confident, when you're pretending, and when you're genuinely present. This is why the psychological trick works, because it removes pressure from the moment and replaces it with emotional alignment. Here's what actually creates that alignment. You show her that you're tuned into her reactions, not just your expectations. You slow your energy, you soften your tone. You hold a calm presence that says, I'm here with you, not ahead of you. When a woman feels that, something transformative happens. Her nervous system relaxes. Her guard drops. She doesn't feel like she has to protect herself. She feels like she can let the moment unfold without fear of it spiraling into something she's not ready for. This is why presence is more powerful than pressure. Presence tells her she can trust the emotional space you've created. Pressure tells her she needs to protect herself. And women respond to emotional energy far more than they respond to physical escalation. Let me give you a simple example of what emotional leadership looks like. It's when you're sitting with her, maybe sharing a quiet moment, and instead of leaning in aggressively, you pause. You hold eye contact, but just for a second. You give her the freedom to move closer if she wants to. You're not taking, you're offering. Women open to men who offer, not men who take, not men who push, and not men who rush. Emotional leadership is not about dominance or control. It's about guiding the moment with calm intention instead of force. It's about letting her feel like she's choosing the intimacy, not reacting to your attempt to create it. When you understand this, everything about your interactions with women changes. The awkwardness disappears, the hesitations fade, the uncertainty dissolves, because you're no longer operating from a place of pressure. You're operating from psychological clarity. There's a reason the smartest, most self-aware women say the same thing when you ask them what makes a man truly irresistible. It's not money, it's not looks, it's not charm, it's not even confidence in the way most men think about confidence. It's emotional clarity, the ability to move in a way that makes her feel wanted, but never hunted, desired, but never pressured, free, but still deeply connected to you. Women call this feeling safe. But that word doesn't mean what a lot of men think it does. Safe doesn't mean boring. Safe doesn't mean passive. Safe doesn't mean slow. Safe means she can trust the moment with you. Safe means she knows you won't push past her comfort. Safe means she feels her emotions are being respected, not overridden. And the psychological trick that makes a woman open up to intimacy is built entirely on this emotional clarity. Let me reveal something most women won't say out loud. A woman wants intimacy to feel like a shared decision, not a reaction to your desire. She wants to feel like she's stepping into the moment, not being pulled into it. She wants to feel like the energy is mutual, aligned, natural, like it's unfolding because both of you feel it, not because one of you is forcing it. This is why the most powerful move you can make isn't a physical move, it's a psychological one. Instead of focusing on, how do I escalate? You shift your mindset to, how do I let her see that I'm present, grounded, and fully aware of this moment? Because here's what you don't realize yet. A woman will often give you more permission than you think, but only if she sees that you're emotionally attuned enough to handle the responsibility. Women test without consciously trying to. They watch how you control yourself. They watch whether you rush the moment. They notice if you get visibly nervous or overly eager. They feel when you're trying to impress instead of connect. And all of these micro signals tell her whether she can trust you with her vulnerability. So here's what emotional clarity looks like in action. You maintain open body language. You hold a steady tone, not a rushed or shaky one. You let silence sit without panicking. You let your presence fill the room instead of your words. You allow her to feel the warmth of your attention without drowning her in pressure. This is the kind of psychological energy that draws a woman closer without you ever having to pull. And here's the part that most men never learn. When a woman feels this emotional steadiness in you, she starts to mirror it. Her breathing slows, her shoulders relax. She leans in more. She touches you softly without thinking. She shares deeper thoughts. She holds eye contact longer. These aren't just behaviors. These are her subconscious signals that she feels emotionally synchronized with you. And once she reaches that state, intimacy becomes natural because she no longer feels like she's stepping into danger. She feels like she's stepping into connection. This is the psychology behind why some men never struggle with intimacy. Not because they're more attractive, but because their emotional clarity invites women into moments others try to force. There's something I need you to hear. Something that can change the way you see intimacy forever. Most men think the key to asking a woman for intimacy is finding the right words, the right timing, the right move. But the real secret, the one almost no man understands, is this. Intimacy isn't asked for. It's invited. A woman doesn't respond to a man who tries to get intimacy. She responds to a man who creates the emotional environment where intimacy feels natural, mutual, and deeply wanted. That's the psychology behind all of this. And once you understand it, you stop wondering what to say. You start understanding how to be. Let's break down the final piece, the part men rarely master, the moment when you actually signal that you want the intimacy to deepen. Here's what's important to understand. A woman's mind is constantly reading emotional cues. If she senses any tension, desperation, or insecurity in you at that moment, she'll pull back. Not because she doesn't want you, but because her body is wired to protect her emotions before she opens up. So here's the psychological trick. Subtle, extremely effective, and still completely respectful and safe. You express desire in a way that feels grounded, slow, and emotionally aligned, not rushed or aggressive. It might look like this. You hold her gaze a moment longer. You soften your voice. You lean in just slightly, not to force the moment, but to deepen the atmosphere. And you say something simple, warm, and emotionally attuned, like, "I really like this connection we're having right now," or "I love this energy between us." Notice something crucial. You're not asking for anything. You're not pushing for anything. You're naming the moment. You're letting her feel that you're aware of the tension but not demanding anything from it. This is powerful because it does three things at once. It validates her feelings. It shows emotional maturity. It opens the door without dragging her through it. At this point, a woman who feels connected will give you a clear signal. She might smile. She might move closer. She might touch your hand or lean into your shoulder. She might say something soft back to you. These are her psychological green lights, indicators that she wants the moment to deepen. And when you respond, you're not making a move. You're continuing a moment you both chose. That's what makes the difference between intimacy that feels pressured and intimacy that feels memorable, meaningful, and safe. Remember this final truth. Women follow emotional leadership. If you're grounded, she relaxes. If you're calm, she opens. If you're present, she trusts the moment. Intimacy flows from emotional safety, not physical strategy. And the men who master this, they don't struggle. They don't get confused by mixed signals. They don't feel rejected and they don't chase. They create an emotional atmosphere women want to step into. If this resonated with you, if you want more deep psychological breakdowns from a female perspective, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with a man who needs to hear it. Because once you understand female psychology at this level, you don't just attract women, you connect with them in a way most men never learn.